So you're saying with Hilton Honors, I can use points for a free night stay anywhere?
Anywhere.
What about fancy places like the Canopy in Paris?
Yeah, Hilton Honors, baby.
Or relaxing sanctuaries like the Conrad in Tulum?
Hilton Honors, baby.
Ooh, what about the 5-star Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives?
Are you gonna do this for all 9,000 properties?
When you want points that can take you anywhere, anytime, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay. Book your spring break now.
Good things come in fours, like ukulele strings, boy band members, and PayPal Pay in 4. No fees, no interest, no impact on your credit score. Just the flexibility to pay the way that works for you. Strum it, hum it, pay it in 4. Download the PayPal app to get started. Subject to approval. Learn more at paypal.com/payin4. PayPal Inc. NMLS 910457.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I am going to talk about the difference between a selfish partner and an avoidant partner. This is something I was asked to do by a listener, and I mean, there is no difference, but I'll explain why. Because those are synonyms. So we will talk about that as soon as I tell you to subscribe. Most recent subscriber episode was incompatibility, more of a big deal than people think. And there are 25% more episodes that you will get if you subscribe. So a lot of bang for your buck there. Okay, so there is no difference. So this could be a really short episode. There's no difference. There is no difference. Somebody who's avoidant, by definition, is self-centered. They are centered on themselves. They are focused on themselves. They are focused on their interests. I talk about this a lot. Work, hobbies, friends, themselves, their interests. They are so they're not selfish to friends often. And pets, they'll do things for pets. They'll do things for their kids. But if you're saying within a relationship, what's the difference between somebody who's selfish and somebody who's avoidant? There's no difference. Because the avoidant person puts themselves on a pedestal above the partner. Their needs and wants come above those of the partner. That is the definition. The one thing that they will always do is give the person space. But since that is what they want to do anyway, and they're most comfortable giving space and taking space, that isn't a gift. Now, it's a gift if a preoccupied person does it, then cool. But the preoccupied person feels pain, feels aversion to the space. So then they're sacrificing and they're putting the other person's needs above theirs. Now, they don't do that often, as I'm going to talk about next, because believe me, avoidant is not the only selfish attachment style, because all insecure attachment definitionally is selfish within the relationship. You are trying to get your needs met, whether they're needs for togetherness, which is preoccupied or anxious attachment, or needs for separate self, which is the avoidant person. That is self-centered. Only securely attached people can give and receive love freely and without kind of an agenda. The agenda from the avoidant partner is to make sure that they are not taken advantage of in some way, or that their identity does not become subsumed by the partner. Their identity and their self is number one. They are selfish. They are into themselves. Now, the preoccupied attachment partner at first doesn't look like that because they're always trying to hang out. They're always trying to do things together, but the other person doesn't want to. The other person doesn't want to. So the preoccupied attachment person is trying to pursue somebody for something that they do not want to give. They're trying to steal affection and attention and love from somebody against their will. So that person isn't doing so hot in the selflessness department either. The reality is both people in an insecure dynamic, a pursuer-distancer dynamic, are selfish. That's why you go to therapy, right? You go to therapy because the relationship isn't working. If somebody was selfless in that situation, there would be no conflict. And there's yet frequently a lot of conflict in these situations. So let's say, just as a thought experiment, because I was watching The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem, and in that show, it's set 80 years ago, right? And it was very, very, very different. If you end up with an abusive husband, as a character does, that's it. You're really not allowed to get divorced. You don't have a lot of options. It's fairly arranged. Even if it's not arranged, there were not a lot of people around for any given person to marry. It was whoever was in your neighborhood, whoever was around when you were around, whoever didn't get drafted. Things used to be a lot different. And so let's say that there was a situation in a world, a thought experiment we're doing, where a secure person ends up with an avoidant person, right? That doesn't really happen as much now because you do not have to stay with the person that you're with. People date for a long time before they get married, and they're allowed to choose who they marry. So overall, now in this generation, you see preoccupied and avoidant find each other. But you used to see people just kind of get almost put together artificially by sometimes even a matchmaker or what have you. So in that situation, let's just say that people are randomly assigned. So how would a secure person deal with an avoidant? Let's say the secure person loved the avoidant. Oh, you know what? I don't have to do these time travel analogies. I could just do parenting. What do you do if you have an avoidant child? That's very independent. You give them space. And if you don't, you try to work on it yourself. And you understand you're the one who's being selfish. You want to hang out with, let's say, your teenager against your will. And I have a post, are you in a pursue or distance or relationship with your teenager? And I could definitely understand it. It's a very hard time. I have another post, why is parenting a teenager so stressful for mothers? It's very difficult when a child, doesn't want to spend time with you in the way that they used to, especially if they have a more avoidant personality overall. And they basically do not want to hang out, pretty much at all. Once they hit teenage years or young adult years or whatever, well, then you understand that if you love your child, and most people do, then you need to give them that space. And it would be selfish to force them to hang out with you. So in my time travel where 80 years ago, whatever, 100 years ago, a secure person ends up with an avoidant partner that doesn't want to hang out. You're really trying to make the marriage work. You really love them. Well, then you would say, I love this person. This person wants to go do their thing almost all the time. So I guess that's how I love them. It's sad for me because I like to hang out more. I wish I had a different kind of person, but I don't. I love this person. This is the person I'm with. This person never really wants to hang out. So as much as possible, I'm going to give this person their space. That's what you would do with a child. It's what you would do if you truly, deeply loved an avoidant. You would give them all their space. It would be like if you're married to somebody who wants to be an astronaut and you say, okay, yeah, that's your dream is to be an astronaut, be an astronaut. Well, they're not going to be home every night at 5, right? If they're astronaut, right? They're doing other things, like going into space. So if you were to love that person, then you would say have infinity space. And that's how you would not be selfish, whether they're your child, whether they're your husband a million years ago, whether they're your astronaut spouse, whatever. If you continue to beg and claw at them for hanging out with you and telling them how fucked up they are and their whole family is messed up and their mother's messed up and that's why they have difficulty with closeness and they don't want to hang out and you're such a martyr and they are so terrible, well then how are you not being selfish? You're also being selfish. So the avoidant person obviously is being selfish because they obviously just want to pursue their own interests that their own self likes. But the preoccupied attachment partner is also being selfish, because they're not loving this person how they want to be loved. And often when you go to therapy as a preoccupied attachment person and you learn to give the avoidant partner more space, they do act nicer when they're around. They are happier. They really are. And whether or not you're perfectly happy yourself, you know what? We don't get a perfect life. Things are not ideal. Many, many people, if they heal, that's the other way, without time travel, without a teenager, without an astronaut. You could also say, what about if the preoccupied attachment partner becomes more securely attached in therapy? Well, then they start to give the avoidant partner more space. And sometimes it does work out. Sometimes the avoidant partner really does say, thank you. Thank you for not, constantly pursuing me in the ways that you used to do. And that makes me relax enough so that I can be a happier avoidant person and even slightly less avoidant. That is how a lot of things work out. Life is long. People do change and grow. Now, the avoidant person if they happen to go to therapy, they don't usually pursue their own therapy. And if they do, they literally do not even talk about their relationship. They talk about like work or their kids or something like that. But let's say they get into marital counseling, because that's the most frequent way I would see somebody who's avoidant attachment. Can they learn to give less space, to come home more, to engage more? Yeah, they can. And then frequently, the preoccupied attachment person will grow less preoccupied, because the other person is actually trying to change, is actually trying to be less self-centered. And so then they say, well, since they are trying, I'm going to give them more space. So it's always a compromise. Will you wish that you had somebody who really instinctively in their heart wanted to hang out more? Yeah, you would, in the teenage sense, in the astronaut sense, in every sense. But life isn't perfect, and that's like what a lot of our society now gets wrong. What I see all over social media is like, how can I fix my relationship to be the perfect relationship? You can't. You can't always do that. You can't fix your child, you can't fix your spouse, and you can't fix yourself to be perfect. There's always going to have to be compromise. No situation is completely perfect. Many, many, many people wish that their partner instinctively wanted in their soul to hang out more. But you know what? You don't get a perfect life, and nobody does. And they have so many good qualities. You have a family together. You laugh at their jokes. You get along. You're intellectually equal, and so they're not the person in the world that most wants to hang out or is the most romantic. Oh, well, there are other things. Now, when it becomes less easy to compromise is when there's another elephant in the room, in addition to them being avoidant. So if you don't, let's say, respect their intelligence, if you don't laugh at the same things, if you don't share the same values, then the fact that they want all that separate time from you feels worse. But I'll tell you, then it's really just a straw man there. You would be upset about those lack of similar values, intelligence, sense of humor, whatever. Those elephants in the room would not just go away if that person was securely attached. You think they would, but they wouldn't. So avoidant attachment is often like a real easy way to blame lack of incompatibility or lack of compatibility, which is kind of what my most recent subscriber episode was about. So you should probably listen to that. So the truth is, there's no real difference between a selfish person and an insecurely attached person. In their other life, outside of the relationship, people can be different. They can draw on their deepest motivation to be selfless for children, in their career, with their friends. Somebody could be spending their life as helping people just constantly, as a doctor, as a lawyer, as a teacher, anything, But then when they get into the relationship, they're selfish. That's what insecure attachment is. You're focused on your needs. You can't see the forest for the trees. You're constantly trying to either pursue or withdraw based on your insecure attachment style. And thus, you are not really being a good partner. If you want to get into therapy and see how good your relationship can get, be my guest. It may get a lot better than you think that it ever could, or it may uncover the fact that when you work on the pursuer-distancer dynamic, it uncovers some other incompatibilities. But you know what? You know that. You know what those are. If you got $1 million right now to say, let's say you weren't allowed to include attachment issues in your list of complaints about your partner, and you weren't allowed to say that they just didn't want to hang out and that's the problem, what would it be? You get $1 million for the right answer. Yeah, well, you know what? You would say, well, we're not really attracted to each other. We don't really click. I don't respect them. I don't think that they're very smart. We don't like to hang out. A million things. So think about that. That's a good assignment. If you were my client, that would be the assignment. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, do subscribe. I am writing every day also at Buy Me a Coffee. So that's in my episode description. That's $5 a month. So that's actually your your cheapest option if you want to hang out with me virtually and see stuff that I think about every day. And I will talk to y'all soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Stitch Fix. Shopping is hard. Let's talk about it.
I don't have time to shop, so I buy all my clothes where I buy my seafood.
I just want someone to tell me what shirt goes with what pants. I just want jeans that fit.
Stitch Fix makes shopping easy. Just show your size, style, and budget, and your stylist sends personalized looks right to your door. No subscription required, plus free shipping and returns.
Man, that was easy. That looked good.
Stitch Fix, online personal styling for everyone. Take your style quiz today at stitchfix.com.